guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a story time. I'm not going to make it too long, but it is a story of sorry, when I lived in a serial killer's house unknowingly, and it still amazes me to this day when I think about that, how I had no idea who he was. It's been to court recently and he actually wasn't the one charged, but he was the suspect for 20 years. So in early 2016, I had my second youngest was a newborn, and I had a 4-year-old, a newborn, and 8-year-old, I think it was. And sorry, I'm just going to turn that. Anyway, so I was on the search for a rental as I had just returned from Queensland with my kids. I had to come back because I was in an ongoing custody battle for my son. So I had to come back and find a house in order to get my son home. So I went and met this couple, what I thought was a lovely couple. I don't hate them, but they end up being a bit creepy. I went to the house, I viewed it, and straight off the bat, I just got a weird vibe. They wouldn't let anyone mow the lawns, they wouldn't let them do any maintenance on the house. And they just had like a very weird aura about them. Their house was old, run down quite a bit, but they were doing their best to maintain it, I guess. They said straight away that I could rent the house. It wasn't expensive, it was in my price range, so I was happy to have a house. I had made a deal with the landlord after I moved in to pay the bond off. Instead of getting a loan to pay it, he was letting me pay it off. So that worked out good for me. He would come around and collect the bond money, and I would send the rent money straight to his bank. One day I didn't know he was coming, and I had just gotten the kids in the bath, getting them ready for bed. They'd had tea, they're having a bath, and next thing I know, I hear a beep out the front of my house. So I go out and I've got my house coat on and a nightie, and I'm trying to cover myself up because this man's in probably his late 60s, maybe early 60s, but around that age frame. And he says, "Oh, nice legs," and I was creeped out by it. I thought, oh, yuck. So I just wanted to get away and get inside. And then he had mentioned that he had been the suspect and just randomly brought it up. And said that he was the Claremont serial killer suspect for 20 years. You can even look this case up. It was in Australia, it was a huge case. So I was like, what the fuck? And then he's like, yeah, I can't register a car in my name. They pull me over, they bash me. He was the mayor, I don't know how to pronounce the word properly, of the town or of the suburb where the murders had happened. So he was in the spotlight a lot. They raided his house, they'd raided houses he lived at, houses he owned, as well as the house he lived at. Every time they'd see him driving, they would pull him over. This is his words. Pull him over, drag him out of the car and bash him and be like, "We know you're a serial killer, but we don't have the evidence we need to prosecute you just yet." And I'm thinking, why are you telling me this? Like, because I was a single mum on my own at the house. It was sending chills down my spine. And then he says, yeah, they've non-stop harassed me. He'd actually tried to sue the WA police, Western Australia police, but they got let off with it. So I was thinking, like, again, why are you telling me this? And then I was around at my brother's house. He was renting a house through the same person, him and his partner at the time. And he just happened to say, I'd forgotten about it, just happened to say, what if this guy's the Claremont serial killer? And I was like, it's so weird you say that, because he just told me that he was under investigation for 20 years. So me and my brother looked at each other and was so creeped out. Like, it's not a coincidence that he's thinking this. I'm getting told this information by the guy himself. I was so creeped out. And then my other brother had moved into another property he had. So he owns about, at the time, I don't know now, he'd owned about 20 properties. He was a child psychologist too. He was not allowed to practice psychology with children because of the investigation. So he'd get paid a wage and wasn't allowed to actually do any work. So we moved my brother into his house, my other brother. And it was a huge house, but it had no backyard. It was very old. It had an outside bathroom. It's very old and had a real eerie feeling about it. And then one day my brother rings me up and he's like, I'm not fucking shitting you, Melissa, there's human bones in the house. I'm like, what? So I race over there, and fair enough, under the linen cupboard there was wooden planks that had been placed on top. We lifted the wooden planks up and there was bones. We were 100% convinced that he was the serial killer and that he had other victims that had not been counted. And then, mind you, this man's coming around to my house while I'm there on my own with my kids every 2 to 3 weeks, mowing the lawns, and any maintenance need doing he would do. So we didn't say anything about it, obviously, but we were really, I was on edge. My brothers weren't so much on edge, we were just creeped out a bit. They were creeped out. And then a few weeks go by, we had gone back to my other brother's house. Well, his name's Tony. We went back to Tony's house and we had said to each other, you know, we're not going to mention anything about it because we didn't want to risk losing our houses. It could just be a coincidence, which we know damn well it wasn't a coincidence. But we had no hardcore proof, and if we had gone running to the police, we would have been evicted, and we had nowhere to go. We had no family in WA at that time except for each other. So we didn't really say anything about it. And then he's come around, the landlord's come around, and he's brought a friend with him. And we were moving something, I think it was furniture, off the trailer to take into the house. So all his houses were fully furnished, which was handy. And his friend had, I don't know whether it was intellectual learning disability. It was a disability. No, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but he was very different, very out there. He had no filter. He just spoke what he thought. And he looked at me and my brother and he said, Melissa and Tony, I had something to do with the murders. And we looked at each other and we're like, what? And he says, yeah, me and Peter had something to do with the murders. Well, we started doing research and my blood was like, oh my God, going cold. I had chills down my spine, my hair was standing up on my body, goosebumps, and this is all sort of adding up. And the landlord saying, you know, shut up to the person, I could not remember his name, shut up, you're going to give it away. And then he took him down the end of the driveway. This driveway was huge. Took him down to the end of the driveway and told him off, stop opening your mouth, we heard that much. And I was like saying to Tony, oh my God, maybe he is the serial killer, you know, like there's a lot kind of adding up here. And then I can't remember what happened after that. We ended up investigating. We looked it up on the internet, and it just so happened that the bloke had opened his mouth, was a taxi driver, and so was the landlord at the time. We didn't know this, and they were the last two people to be seen with these girls that had been murdered. There was 3 that had been murdered in, I think it was about a 6-month or 12-month span. So that was it. I was so creeped out. I wanted to change all the locks on my house. I didn't necessarily want to be there. I was on the list for a house through the government. So I was ringing them every day saying, this is a situation, is there anything available? I want to get out of here and I'm a bit scared. I was worried for my kids. So 6 months later, I get a call from a landlord saying, look, I'm thinking about putting the house you're in on the market. Apparently police had been there again, raided him again, and he'd been cut off from his benefits he was getting for being a child psychologist. They'd somehow come to an end. He wasn't doing the work, so he wasn't going to be getting paid. So he needed to sell some houses. The house I was in was in a prime location and he could have made a lot of money. So he told me he was going to be putting this house up for sale. So I was thinking, oh my God, well, that's kind of a relief. I kind of want to get out of here, but as well, being on a single income, trying to rent a house, as anybody knows, is difficult. So I was a bit worried, and I'd be awake all night. These thoughts running through my head. Oh my God, am I living in a serial killer's house? My house had floorboards all through it. And I used to have this reoccurring dream that there was bodies under the floorboards in my bedroom. And it would haunt me. I'd ring my brother up, Daniel. I'd ring him and be like, look, I'm really freaking out here. I can't sleep. And he'd be like, yeah, me too. And he's 6'4" and built like a brick shit house. So to believe that it was affecting him as much too, that was obviously something. You know, we knew something was off about this person. It was just had this really weird aura. And then I ended up getting my government house probably about 4 or 5 months later. I was so relieved to move out of there, but it kept questioning in my head, you know, what had really gone on. Had he actually done these crimes? And to make things worse, the house that my brother Daniel was in, as I said, he did all the maintenance, the gardening, everything. He wouldn't let no one touch these houses. And my brother would wake up on a Sunday morning, him and his partner at the time, and he'd be at their house knocking on their door, knocking on their window. Or he'd just be opening the gate and walking straight into their backyard. They had a pool. So given the information we'd already heard from him, mind you, and the person that was with him that time, it just was flat out creepy. Not to mention that he also let us know just after I'd moved out that the person who had told us that they were involved in the murders had mysteriously died. So I'm thinking in my head, this guy is definitely a serial killer. He's knocked this bloke off because he's spoken. And then probably about 6 or 12 months after that had happened and I'd moved out, they ended up knocking my old house down. And I seen on the news that someone else is being charged for it. This isn't right. This is not right. This guy gave off every vibe, every aura about him, just screamed at me and my family that he was the one who did it. And he was the mayor of Claremont, so he knew where to hide a body. He knew the ins and outs of that area like no one. And the fact that he was a taxi driver and the last place they were seen was getting into a taxi. So everything was sort of lining up to us that it was him. Now, some guy has been charged. He adamantly swears it was not him. I know a lot of criminals don't fess up to things that crimes they've committed, especially something like rape and murder. But yeah, I don't know. It sits with me. I was just lying down with my baby and I was just thinking about it, like, did this guy take the fall for him? Because he did have a lot of money. Did he pay him off? Did he pay the police off? Like, there's just so much evidence that he had told me himself. I mean, he couldn't even register a car in his name from what he had told me. So the police were obviously on him. He swears blind they used to assault him, bash him. they'd bashed him in front of his wife. His wife had actually confirmed that with me, that he had been brutally attacked by police in front of her. So it still plays on my mind now, like, yeah, did he get away with murder? Did I live in a serial killer's house? From what I think, and I know the information I know, I definitely 100% believe it was him who did it. I even rang the police commissioner and said, I think you've got the wrong person here. I think it's so-and-so, I'm not going to say his name for discrimination purposes, but I think you've got the wrong person here. And I said, no, we've done our investigation and this is what we've concluded. So that is one of many very disturbing, not one of many, but it's a very disturbing story that I lived through and still bothers me to this day. The only reason they convicted the person who's now in jail is, and don't get me wrong, I'm not making out like it's nothing. He had a charge of rape on his record. So I kind of think they've just gone, right, he's got sexual assault. These women were all sexually assaulted. I'm pretty sure one of their bodies was never even found, so they don't know what exactly happened to her. But he was charged with 2 of the murders. One, I don't think there was enough evidence for. I think that was the one they didn't find. But it was a huge thing in Australia. When I was a kid, it was so big. It was on the news all the time. I was scared. I used to have nightmares and wouldn't leave my mum's side. I'd sleep in her bed every night because all I'd hear about on the news or the radio was Claremont serial killer. To then grow up and live in a house where I'm getting told this guy's the accused killer still keeps me awake at night. Still really bothers me. But yeah, I just thought that this might be something different, something you guys might enjoy. It's not scripted, it's just a real story that really happened, and like you can Google it and read it for yourself. There's even a documentary about it, Claremont serial killer, and you'll see who I mean and you'll see his name. I'm not going to say his name because he's got a lot of money and I don't want to get done for discrimination or slander, should I say. So I'm not going to say the name. But yeah, definitely very creepy. And I wasn't the only one who got these vibes. Like, even people who were at my house, say friends, acquaintances, as soon as they'd see him, because he'd do this really weird thing where he would not be due to come to my house to do the lawn mowing or the gardening or any maintenance, and he would come down the road really slow, like in a real creepy way, and he'd drive like really slowly past my house, and I'd be sitting there staring in at me the whole time. And I'd have mates at my house. What's up with this loony turning up? That's my landlord. Something's just weird about him, mate. That's really weird. And he had people he used to pay like very minimum wage that would help him do gardening and keep the houses up. And even they would say they got a really weird aura from him. They'd go to work, make their money, and they'd go home. Like, they didn't want to be associated with him, but they needed the money. Times were hard. So there was a lot of people that backed up these theories and backed up these claims that he was just super duper creepy. His wife was super duper creepy. At the end of the day, I do thank him for letting me rent their house while I was waiting for my other house to come up at the time. But yeah, have you ever had an encounter like that? Have you ever experienced anything creepy like that? Leave it down in the comments below, and if you like this kind of video, I mean, I don't really have any more serial killer stories, thank goodness, but yeah, I've got plenty of other stories I can tell. I've had a very up and down adventurous life, I must say. Probably got some stories that would shock you guys, so if not, leave your comments down below and maybe we can read some serial killer. So when it came down to the bones, the human bones, we assume they were human, that we had found we actually decided to take them to the police station and state whose house we were living in, who we were renting from, who owned the house. We gave them the bones, but we never actually heard anything back. They sort of looked at us and laughed and thought we were just, I don't know, crazy, I guess. So we never actually got an outcome from them bones. Still to this day, that is my biggest wonder, is was it human remains and did he do it? Stories together or something. I love true crime. I watch a lot of true crime. It fascinates me to see how many sick people are in this world. I don't know. I'm actually really thinking about going back to school and doing my year 11 and 12 exams and then studying psychology. I'd love to study criminal psychology. It really interests me, really fascinates me. Hence why I thought I'd share this story. I think it's very interesting. So I'm actually on bed rest at the moment. You probably can't see it. My foot, mine, a little bit of dirt on it, is extremely swollen. I was tucking my kids into bed last night and didn't realise their small making machine, my daughter had put it in her room for some weird reason, and the poker thing, I don't know what it's called, that you put the marshmallows on, you hold it over the thing to melt them before you put them in the biscuit, was on the floor, did not see it, and it went straight through my foot, and then I didn't really feel it for some reason. I always wear shoes, I've got soft feet. I didn't feel it, and I went to like kick it away, not realising, and as I've kicked it away, it's just pushed it right into my foot, about that far up my foot, not in, but up my foot. My whole foot is so swollen I can't walk on it. So I'm hibernating in my room. That's why it's a bit of a different scenery today. And was lying down resting with Bob, trying to rest my foot. So kind of on bed rest at the moment. I had actually planned to do a cooking video today. I was going to make Fairy Floss ice cream, but I need to rest my foot, so I've not bothered. But I definitely do want to start uploading more videos. I just had a lot going on. I'm not going to sit here and feed excuses. I haven't been consistent, like I said, and that's all there is to it, I guess. But no, but life's been throwing a hell of a lot of obstacles at me lately, and it's not one thing, it's something else. And I think as the kids are getting older, especially my teenage son that I love with all my heart, he turned 17 the other day, and it's been nothing but freaking trouble. One thing after another. So yeah, trying to balance everything, run a YouTube channel, 2 channels actually. Other channels definitely suffering a lot because I haven't posted on there in a long time. So yeah, I do apologise. I'm not going to feed excuses. I'm going to call this video quits now, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. But if you like this content, please leave a thumbs up or a comment down below, and maybe we can do another story time soon. Also, I've been wanting to do a Q&A. You got to head over to my Instagram, leave me some messages on questions you'd want to ask, and I will follow up with a Q&A. I have posted on there a few times that I'm going to be doing a Q&A, so I do already have a few questions, but I haven't done it because I only got like 3 people message. I'm trying to build up my Instagram and my YouTube, so yeah, follow me over there and leave me an inbox. Alright, bye guys.